All right, week 8 is in the books. We're basically at the halfway point of the NFL season, and we just finished watching the Chiefs pee the Sunday night game down their leg. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But today is an important day. It is the sports equinox. There was a World Series game that no one watched, except for Trump, who I guess apparently got booed, and people got flashed. So I guess a lot was going on at that game. They have to check it out later.
It's probably not the first time that the president has been somewhere where somebody has done that, but
Flashed a pitcher?
well, somebody.
We've got basketball obviously happening. I need to check on my Lakers. Football, of course, and hockey, and really one of the more important things I thought was the golf was happening.
Mm-hmm. You were very much sweating out the Tiger Woods outcome.
Yeah, he tied Sam Snead for the most wins ever in PGA Tour history, which I think
very
is
impressive.
Pretty impressive. Now, the funny thing, the reason I brought this up is because it was sports equinox, kind of a big deal. Was your day that much different than any normal Sunday?
No, I mean, truth be told, like I like NBA, but like not right now, and I don't really like hockey that much anymore, and baseball is a disaster, right? So I will say this. I have turned on a WNBA game during a NFL Sunday, but that was that 1 week where there was only like 2 games on at 4 o'clock, and it was like literally the finals. So that's like me, but I know you like were actually watching a few games during other sports during the day today. So maybe you're more eclectic as a sports fan.
I'm
than
more
me.
well-rounded sports fan. I mean, I'm a huge golf fan, and the reason I'm a golf fan is because of Tiger Woods when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so
inspirational in many ways.
Yes,
that man.
I mean, he's ridiculously good. So I was watching that, and I'm a basketball fan. I didn't watch that. I watched the World Series just in the background because I wanted to know how much Sunday night was going to crush that World Series rating.
Right.
Because F them. And I think I would assume that Sunday night did because that game was actually good. So let's talk about this game briefly. And when we discussed so the Kansas City Chiefs +4 was our lock of the week, and we took it for a couple of reasons. The first was, well, Pat Mahomes still has a chance to play. This was on Thursday when we were discussing it. So let's say he has a 10% chance to play. That's great. 10% of the time you get an amazing amount of value. But if Matt Moore plays, he's got Andy Reid, he's got Tyreek Hill, he's got Travis Kelce, and Sammy Watkins coming back. And that gives them a legitimate shot to win the game.
It does. At
home with Matt Moore at quarterback. They did what seems to me every single thing we could have hoped from a scheme and offensive perspective to get that done. Mm-hmm. And yet it just didn't happen. Biggest reason was what?
Well, we saw both of the sides of Andy Reid tonight. We saw the side of Andy Reid that is not always first in our coaching rankings on the play-by-play level, scheming players open. We saw, Matt Moore. I have to look at his numbers, but it was, they ran play action,
almost half the time,
which was, an amazing, thing for them to do.
Yeah,
frankly,
on first and second down, it was basically 50% of their pass plays.
They slowed down the pass rush. They gave more clean pockets, despite the fact that 3/5 of their offensive line at times was down. Mm-hmm. They made honestly the plays that they were scheming up, especially in that second quarter, were terrific. So that was the positive thing. The negative thing was that we got everything that was bad about Andy Reid as well. Down to their drive at the end of the second quarter. They could have gone up a touchdown. They sort of fooled around too much with trying to manipulate the clock. They ended up having to kick a field goal. They still gave Aaron Rodgers a chance for what was a Hail Mary there. Earlier in the half, they punted the ball on 4th and inches from their end of the field on a play where like Sammy Watkins should have had the first down type of thing. And then, of course, at the very end of the football game, they obviously punted on 4th and 3 and never got the ball back. And so those are like characteristic Andy Reid things where he's terrific at the scheming. He can be at times not so much when it comes to the actual game theory of and we saw that today, unfortunately, if you're backing the Chiefs.
The Chiefs game plan was really pretty darn solid. Aside from playing Shady McCoy and
That's the other thing I don't
allowing
get.
him to gallivant the ball out. And if he's basically a Harlem Globetrotter, like spitting the ball on his finger as he travels through the hole that the scheme creates. But the Andy Reid decisions are so crazy to me because he has to have been told, hey, man, these are bad at some point. I mean, someone's he has to read something somewhere that says this, right? I can't imagine that he doesn't. So is he just not humble enough to ask someone to tell him? Does he not have – what's going on? Because that 4th and 3 play, you've got a 55% chance to convert that play for a first down. And if you punt the ball away, I mean, what do you think's going to happen? You've given up 31 points with like a quarter taken out, right? They basically shut Rodgers down in the second quarter.
Yep. But they had clearly figured out their whole put 2 big guys in the middle of the field, blitz a lot, and then play man coverage because the man coverage, they got the ball to the running back out of the backfield against the linebackers, and that was just not going to, be stopped, right?
They had it completely figured out. So the idea that you were going to punt the ball away and get it back with a chance to actually do something and score was hilarious. And then, of course, he takes a timeout on a 2nd and short. Why you would do that, they're going to obviously pick it up. And you've just you just waste a timeout completely. But that 4th and 3 was a very bad decision. The decision itself carried about a 6% decrease in your chance of winning the game, which I say this every time. 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge for the NFL. Should they convert, they've still got a 22% chance to win the game. Should they turn it over, 8% chance to win the game. The crazy thing is if they turn it over, they still have all their timeouts. The game is not over in that situation.
You force them to basically kick a field goal or you give up a drive, but the drive happens more quickly. They don't get to salt the game away on you.
Exactly.
And it's unfortunate because we've seen the 2 issues that can arise in this sort of resulting based analysis, right? They punt on 4th and inches early in the game. They kick the ball all the way down to Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
They go 3 and out. They punt to Mecole Hardman. He runs it back to the 30. They miss then they miss a field goal with Butker, and it's that was the problem. But the real problem is no, you didn't trust your offense to take the ball in the first place. And then when they don't go for 4th and 3, they get a brilliant punt, and it goes all the way down to the 2-yard line, and they set their defense up for some success. But the fact of the matter is, and I think this is the key thing that Andy Reid has failed to do his entire time in Kansas City, and at times it was warranted, but it is no longer warranted, is he does not understand the disparity between his offense and his defense. He puts the game in his defense hands way too much. And he's built such a terrific offense that to turn his back on it in favor of a defense that was without 3 starters, not good to begin with, and against a Hall of Fame first ballot quarterback playing his best right now, it's baffling. But ultimately that's what ended up killing that pick, frankly.
Well, and they didn't take advantage of a couple of opportunities that Rodgers threw their way, right? Breland dropped that one.
I mean, he would have got up and ran with it. There was nobody, and honestly, he got torched on the play.
Roasted on the play.
He was so far away from the receiver that he could have probably intercepted the ball and run around with it for a while.
The thing is that I don't understand how we're gonna go for it here is saying we don't trust the defense. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. You are still trusting your defense because if you get stopped and you want to still win the game, the defense has to do their job. That is period. End of story.
Yeah.
But you have a better chance of dictating what happens in the game with the ball than you do without it.
Yep.
That's just a fact of the game of football. That's how the game is played. And when your strength of your team is your offense, when you are a Hall of Fame coach because of your play calling and you need to gain 3 yards, and instead you go, you know what? Let me see if this random linebacker can cover Aaron Jones, which he hasn't all game long because Aaron Jones is about to rewrite a record for receiving yards in a game by a Packers running back set in 1942. Maybe you should take a hint and give your offense a chance. We just spent a bunch of time recapping Sunday night without really talking about the Packers. So did this change your opinion of the Packers at all?
No, I don't know. It kind of does. I mean, for the first few games, They were a team that got out to fast starts with their script, and they did again today. But the adjustments, like they had slowed down a bit in the second half of games, or the other team gifted them things. And granted, they did. I mean, the Chiefs had the ball with a 3-point lead to start the second half, and they punted, right? And that's like basically a turnover in a game like this. Shady McCoy fumbles on the other side. The Packers don't get a touchdown on their first drive. All that kind of stuff is all true. But they did find a weakness in the Chiefs defense. From what it sounds like in the post-game interview, it was ad hoc. It was during the middle of the game, and they exploited it. So from the perspective of the Rodgers-LaFleur relationship, that's a good sign. On the other side, though, defensively, we were talking about this team as if they had a legit championship caliber defense through the season's first month, and I don't think that that's true anymore. I think that they anytime you give up that kind of yardage and efficiency to somebody like Matt Moore, all the other stuff aside, I think you're just another defense in the NFL, in my opinion.
Well, we saw this when they played the Raiders, right? That game was really fluky. Raiders receivers were running wide open all over the field and just happened to have Derek Carr punt the ball out of the back of the end zone, and that game was over. Yep. In my mind, this was never about the Packers' defense being good enough or bad enough or whatever. They're no longer so bad. They used to have a defense that's like the Falcons are currently, where it's just so bad that it didn't matter, right? They couldn't cover anyone. I think they can probably cover well enough. Jair Alexander is actually a good corner. Kevin King is terrible, and every time that he celebrates after giving up a first down but tackling a guy really makes me chuckle. Tyreek Hill was just abusing that guy left and right. And this is all about their offense. And the question mark for me was Matt LaFleur. And I actually thought, as simple as it was, he identified the simple mismatch and took advantage of it. And so that means a lot to me. I didn't know that, I mean, it's simple, right? But a lot of coaches don't actually pick this up. They didn't have Devontae Adams, and the rest of their wide receivers were basically non-existent. Jimmy Graham didn't do much of anything, and they still put up 31 on the road. So this was a positive step in my mind for the Packers, and we're going to talk a little bit about Super Bowl matchups that we could actually see happening. And I think Green Bay making it to the Super Bowl now at least has to be in the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a tough road in the NFC, right? Because,
teams are actually good over there.
Because teams are good, and right now they would have to eclipse. I mean, I guess they have the Saints might have had their bye, right? But they're basically battling with the Saints and the 49ers.
Saints
for
are about to have their bye.
2 seed. Okay, so they're tied with the Saints right now. And the Niners are undefeated. Their schedule gets tougher, but it's not easy.
They are.
But those 3 teams, I think, are in a battle, and then the Minnesota Vikings are nipping at the heels of Green Bay. So there are a bunch of teams that can be had here.
So the second big story of the day is that the undefeated teams kept rolling, and my Niners were unfazed. We're unfazed by Christian McCaffrey finally scoring points off the field in a legit way. Olivia Culpo was in attendance, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, she made it all the way from L.A. to watch the game, and it didn't matter. He was great, by the way. Christian McCaffrey was great, and it
didn't
awesome.
Matter.
Did not matter. So the Niners roll, absolutely obliterate Kyle Allen and the Panthers, and the Patriots rolled too. But I'm curious, which win here mattered more?
Oh, Niners by a country mile. There were questions about, both games had weather apparently, right? There was wind in Santa Clara. That's why the total went from 42.5 when we decided not to print it to 41. Didn't seem to have.
We talked about it on the pod though.
We did.
If you listen to the Thursday pod, we did a special non-written up pick, and we talked about both the first half and the game total over.
Yeah.
Cleared by a country mile.
Well, I mean, the Niners did it themselves in both cases. So with the Patriots, their offense made enough plays, right? They didn't look great. And Brady, I guess Brady was fine. He averaged almost 10 yards per pass attempt from a clean pocket in that rain. When pressured, though, he only averaged 3.5 yards per pressured snap, only completed a third of his passes. But, the Niners just did it. They played to their strengths. They rushed the passer. They played great coverage on the back end, and then offensively they ran the football. Tevin Coleman looked like Ricky Waters today in that old school uniform.
Yes, he did.
For San Francisco. So I would say the Niners. And they played a better opponent. The Cleveland Browns are an absolute travesty of a football team right now in terms of getting lined up correctly, executing plays. They called a timeout in punt formation. No, they didn't. They wasted a delay of game in punt formation down by 2 scores. Brought the offense back on the field to try to convert a 4th down.
Did it convert?
No. And then. Later on in the game, they're down by 17, and it's 4th and 1. They get called for delay or a false start or something like that. Back up 4th and 6, then kick a field goal. I don't know, man. And what fixes the Browns?
A change, I think.
Yeah.
The Browns. So the reason that the Niners was more, far more meaningful. And that was because they really hadn't played anybody yet. And the Patriots still haven't played anybody yet because we knew the Browns were bad, right? We knew this to be the case. And it was raining, and the Browns turned the ball over on 3 straight snaps. And yet the Patriots just, kind of lollygagged their way to a 2-score victory. They didn't have to do much. They showed up, and they won the game by 2 scores. But the Panthers, plus 5.5, plus 5, I think by the time it closed, were the most picked team in the Las Vegas Westgate Super Contest. Okay, so there were a lot of people and a lot of sharp, dull money on the Carolina Panthers to cover that. So, to think that was going to be a close game. And there was just no way in hell that was ever going to be a close game. Jimmy G actually played decently well. 140-plus pass rating from a clean pocket. The one terrible interception to Luke Kuechly, but other than that was solid. George Kittle was a monster. And you can see that guys like Emmanuel Sanders are going to be utilized in that offense, right? It took one possession for them to utilize
it didn't take very long.
So with the offense being able to actually do some things now, it frees the defense up to just go, bonkers. And pending they don't get any injuries, like this feels like a Bears-ish from last season defense, but with a real offense.
Yeah. And the thing that I am very happy about this season is, unlike last season, I think that the PFF numbers, if you just look at like the raw grading and all that kind of stuff, I think that we're properly handicapping the Niners right now. And I think it's because Jimmy Garoppolo has been better, and the bar's not high, but Jimmy Garoppolo has been better than Mitch Trubisky was last season.
No kidding.
And that's nothing to joke about, right? But today he only threw 16 passes, but out of a clean pocket he was 11 for 11, averaged 9 yards per pass attempt, 2 touchdowns. He was struggled in the few pressured plays that he had, but he's not giving his team a lack of a chance to win the way that Trubisky did a season ago. But I think that the defenses and the schedule are so good and bad respectively that it's a similar thing, right? And last season a lot of people faded the Bears all season, right? And they had an easy schedule, and they had some pretty favorable spots, and they still would cover them for defensive touchdown reasons. Remember Thanksgiving, right? They got it. They picked 6 Stafford right at the end to cover, and so. With the Niners, I'm really happy that you and I are not on the side of fading them to the nth degree every single week like we did the Bears, getting in front of that freight train. And I think weirdly, Garoppolo gets a lot of crap. I think Evan Silva just tweeted this out, but the plurality of passes by Jimmy Garoppolo are first downs, and he's leading the NFL. I think it's 42% of his passes are going for first downs this year. And that's the one stat he stands out in, but it talks about the efficiency of that offense. If he doesn't put his team through passing in long yardage situations, he can be covered up. And even though he's not great, I think he's good enough here for this Niners team to be dangerous come January.
I'm not going to lie; it reminds me a lot of Brady when he was a younger quarterback, right? He allowed the team to be successful because of the strengths that it had, and Jimmy G knows that, obviously, having watched Brady, that winning is the most important thing. And I'm now sounding like a total homer and fan. I will point out that Kyle Allen, when he was kept clean, had a 44 passer rating, averaged 5 yards per attempt through 2 picks. the coverage on the back end for the Niners has played pretty darn well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you combine not porous coverage with pass rushers that have athleticism, like apparently Nick Bosa does,
Sneaky athleticism,
contrary to what Booger McFarland may tell you, that can be a recipe for such success that Jimmy G can go out and leverage Shanahan's scheme and just roll over teams, and that's what they did. So the Niners and the Patriots, I don't know if the Patriots will be tested a little bit next week. The Niners, it doesn't appear like they will, but we'll talk about those games in a second. You mentioned the Bears and Trubisky. I don't even know where to begin with this game because what?
Well, this was the situation, and I know it's a little bit different because it was a slightly longer field goal. But there's so much that's hilarious about this. This was the one where Bill O'Brien somehow got to be on the right end of a coaching error when he said, great job, Vance, you dumb, when Vance Joseph against Houston basically lined up his team with a minute left for like a 50-yard field goal and missed, right? The Bears, after Mitch Trubisky scrambled for about 11 yards, were at the 21-yard line
22.
with about 43 seconds left. The Chargers, because they're the Chargers, had used up all their timeouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of trying to get it a little extra yards, instead of maybe even trying to score, because if you're the Chargers, right, like, and we gave this, we wrote this up as well, that like for the Bears, if you run a play, there's three things that can happen. A, the Chargers are trying to let you score, in which case you do exactly what the Packers did on Monday night against Detroit and run as far as you can, and then basically take a knee where you're comfortable, right? You teach your players to do that. They're playing, they stuff the run, right? In which case the percentages on those field goals going backward is not as high as going forward, right? So again, it's an asymmetric
Also,
risk.
what are you going to get stuffed for 3 yards?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Or they're playing not to give up a touchdown, right, or not to give up a simple, and so they give you 3-4 more yards, right? In any event, Matt Nagy. Anyway, he decided, okay, well, no, we're done. Actually concedes a yard on a kneel down.
Have a timeout.
Call the timeout. And then this is the craziest part of the entire thing. They kicked a field goal that should have been a 39-yard field goal from 41 yards.
Yep.
They took their holder and had to go 9 yards back, and that field goal missed by the smallest of margins. Those extra 2 yards even could have been a deal there. So unfortunately for Nagy, he's been a good offensive play caller so far, but he appears to come from the Andy Reid tree where the great play calling is sometimes married to suspect end of game theory.
Yeah, I mean, just picking up 5 yards on 2 plays would have increased their chance of making a field goal like nearly 6%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just terrible. And the quotes that came out, I'm not going to get these perfectly correct, but the quotes that came out were, again, we talked about this last week, right? Which is like, is Nagy kind of throwing Trubisky under the bus because he's like, I don't want my coaching tenure tied to this garbage at quarterback. And he was basically like, well, if we throw it, so many bad things can happen. If we run another offensive play, so many bad things can happen. It's like, what are you guys doing at practice all week? Like, you can't get 1-2 plays off without a turnover. People not understanding the chance, how unlikely a turnover when you're trying not to turn it over are is really shocking to me. And if you're the Bears right now, this is a not so good look. I don't know who's more underwhelming, the Bears or the Browns. Got to be the Bears, right? Because the Bears actually did make it to the playoffs last year, and people were clamoring for Super Bowl this year they were for the Browns, but that was very unfounded. So, I mean, now they're in some real.
Well, and the problem is now they're in last place in their own division. Detroit held on; they didn't cover today, but they held on against the Giants. Without Darius Slay, and with some kind of weird plays sometimes by Stafford. He threw a really bad pick early in the game. Vikings and Packers are the class of that division. So if you're looking to even repeat as division champions, you basically have to win out from here, and that's not going to happen.
Who do you think lasts longer, Nagy or Kitchens?
Nagy. I mean,
Kitchens gone after this year. Right?
I mean, Kitchens has what, a little stretch as an interim coach that basically bought him the job he currently has.
Right.
And I don't think that gets to carry over. I think he used all that capital up to get the job he currently has, and then what's happened here. The Browns do have a really easy schedule moving forward, but that doesn't mean much if you can't line yourself up and play
football. Here's what it's going to be, though. They're going to do the same thing they did last year. They're going to creep back to average, at the end of the season, give everyone some hope, and then he'll stick around. There's no reason to think that Nagy shouldn't be successful. He's been a good play caller. Every person from the Andy Reid tree that's running that offense has had success or is having success. So I don't know why you wouldn't understand that he could still be a good head coach. I think he's a little in his own head right now, and he's probably a little frustrated. And to me, that's what happened today. And I actually don't blame Nagy for that. I think his frustration is with the fact that he has no outlet to getting a good quarterback.
Yeah, and that's something that you signed up for, though. If you're him, you know that
not really, though.
But I guess the Khalil Mack thing happened after, but the Trubisky trade didn't, right? They traded a significant amount of assets for Trubisky, and so there was not going to be this pulling of the plug on Trubisky. Yeah. And early on, it looked like he was going to get a good offense out of him. I mean, for what it's worth, he was like top 5 in QBR last year in terms. So efficiency, they were fine. Yeah. But I think the NFL figured him out.
When you take that job, Trubisky had not been great with
Dowell Loggins and
then Fox,
John Fox. Yeah.
So you go, well, if he's bad, at least I have time to punt on him. And then all of a sudden that was taken away because they said, actually, we're gonna trade all of our draft capital away. Okay, a couple of teams that also are like in the mix / potential playoff teams. Real quick, the Eagles and the Bills played. Are the Eagles back, or is this just people are reacting to the Bills?
Yeah, the Bills just aren't. I mean, we're gonna get flack for this, but the Bills just aren't that good. Josh Allen, somebody was peacocking about the fact that he was above 60% completion percentage. Well, he's 60.1 now. So that's going to be relatively short-lived. He's under 7 yards per pass attempt. He does now have more touchdowns than interceptions, which
that's good
for this season, not for his career. So they just don't get enough from their quarterback. And as such, we found out with the Bears last season. I mean, this could be Bears Northeast or Trubisky Northeast, but what we found last season during the playoffs and what we were finding out this year is that's an extremely limited way of trying to win football games, and you probably can do okay. They'll likely make the playoffs in the AFC East doing this. It's not enough to beat a team like the Eagles, who did a pretty good job today. Yeah, in terms of offensively, I thought that they moved the football really well, and good for them because they needed it.
Their offensive line played better than they did.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz was good when kept clean. Had a couple of not so great plays under pressure, but their defense. The thing with their defense is that this matchup was perfect for them,
and that's what we said the other day.
Yeah, and so they ate up the Buffalo Bills. I mean, Fletcher Cox was absolutely dominant. Vinny Curry was as well. And so it didn't, their coverage, which can be exposed, didn't get a chance to be exposed.
An absolute blast from the past, right? Back in the day when more quarterbacks were suspect, especially throwing the ball downfield, you could get away with basically daring the other team to throw the ball downfield. It's not that way anymore, but it was a throwback here. Is there anything, just hop back here, is there anything that anyone loves more than Doug Peterson loves handing the ball to Jordan Howard, though?
Probably not.
I mean, he had a great day today. 68 yards after contact, 7 missed tackles.
Handing it to LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, my gosh. Don't even get me started on that. So, Miles Sanders gets 74 yards on 3 carries, including busting a 65-yarder. Yeah. Jordan Howard gets 23 carries as a result and gets 96, which is still a decent efficiency. But, man, I granted, if there's the win, that's an issue. And, and their receivers, Alshon is still a cheeseburger away from being Jason Peters replacement, but Wentz was a solid 116 passer rating from a clean pocket, so maybe they should lean on him a little bit more.
Maybe. Okay, we are going to guess the lines, but we're going to guess some lines of some games that may or may not happen.
Okay, let's do that first.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about potential Super Bowl matchups. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go through each conference real quick. Let's start with the NFC. And I'm going to bring up five teams. And I want to narrow it down to 2.
Okay.
That you could really see going to the Super Bowl right now.
Okay.
So we've got New Orleans, got San Francisco, Green Bay, Dallas, and Minnesota. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. I'm sure someone will think of someone that I'm forgetting. But those 5 teams, you have to pick 2. Who are the 2 that are making it to the Super Bowl, that have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl?
San Francisco and New Orleans.
Now, how big is the gap? Because I'm with you there, and I think if I were looking at the other 3 teams, so that Green Bay, Dallas, and Minnesota, I would go Green Bay, Minnesota, Dallas.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say Green Bay, New Orleans, that to me is close, but it does ultimately come down to the coach, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for New Orleans, there's absolutely no threat from their division.
None.
So that, to me, the health of their quarterback, the health of their defense is really the only question mark.
Alvin Kamara.
But even Kamara, right? Like, they've been fine. San Francisco, the difficulty is that they have a Hall of Fame MVP caliber quarterback playing beneath them in Seattle, who, unlike previous years, is taking care of business. I mean, they gave up 460 yards to Matt Schaub today, but they won. They didn't cover the closing number, but they won.
Skyrocketed.
So that's a threat. But it gets mitigated for me because Green Bay and Minnesota are going to cannibalize themselves in that division.
Okay.
So
New Orleans, San Francisco.
It's New Orleans, San Francisco for me.
Those are teams we can legitimately see making it to the Super Bowl. On the AFC side, this one feels totally different because we've got New England, we've got Kansas City, and then we're like, what the hell? Houston, Indy, Baltimore. To me, there is a giant chasm between a healthy Kansas City, New England, and those 3 teams. Of those 3 teams that are on the cusp, though, which one, in your mind, is closest to being like, I could see them in the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, I'd throw Indy out. Indy is the most impressive of those 3 teams, given what they've had to go through. But Houston and Baltimore are fighting it out for me, and I'm going to go with Houston because Deshaun Watson, with Mahomes being injured right now,
Deshaun Watson's crazy.
The best young quarterback in the NFL right now.
Deshaun Watson is so good. That play that he made to basically win the game was out of this world.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And him icing the game for that under was also impressive. Just a great overall performance for him. Winning, but not by too much.
I love Deshaun Watson.
He's awesome. I mean, honestly, how can you watch him gets poked in the eye? I thought he
kicked in the eye.
I thought he had
lost an eye.
Well, I thought his knee had hit the ground.
Yeah.
And then he just throws this dime. He's making honestly, I want to play tight end for Houston because I could these 2 dudes that play tight end for Houston are collecting.
He was under pressure on 21 of 46 dropbacks today, which is a high number.
A lot.
Now, he invites a lot of pressure.
It's not as high as Brissett this week, by the way, though.
Wow. But he averaged 8.1 yards per attempt and was only sacked 3 times under pressure.
Yeah.
He is incredible. I would actually go with Baltimore. And here's why I'm going to go with Baltimore. Their defense has played terribly.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it has a higher chance of coming together and being not awful in the playoffs because of the talent that they have. Okay.
Right.
So they now have Marcus Peters. They have Earl Thomas. They have
Jimmy
Marlon
Smith
Humphrey.
is coming back.
Jimmy Smith is coming back.
Whereas Houston is trading for Garyon Conley and playing him right away.
And J.J. Watt tore his pec. So as much as I loved Deshaun Watson, he and DeAndre Hopkins are like the only positives, and then everything else is kind of a negative. Whereas with Baltimore, they have a unique offense that now I think is starting to feel itself a little bit. And they have a great coach, and the pieces around them make more sense to me. So it's tough. All 3 of those teams are out, though. So we've got 4 teams: New England, Kansas City, New Orleans.
Can we pause for a second? It's more important, in my opinion, for Baltimore to get a first round bye than Houston, because it is harder to scheme against that offense in a week than it would be 2. So if they get out of the first round, that team that plays them second might have a better shot of it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Kansas City, despite their flaws, and New England. So we have 4 matchups.
4 matchups. Let's start with the 2 old quarterbacks. New England plays New Orleans. What do you think the spread of that game would be?
New England minus 3.5.
That's where I was going to go too. I'm tempted.
And
to
I'm
go
hammering
3.
New Orleans plus 3.5.
I'm tempted to go 3. The tough thing for me is that I just don't. The team that scares me against New England is Kansas City, not New Orleans, because New England's coverage is so good that I just don't. Who on New Orleans is getting open?
Well, Michael Thomas has shown a propensity for getting open, independent of the defense, independent of the quarterback, independent of players playing around him, right? Cook and Ginn and all those guys have been out. So, but I agree with you. I think, like, if there is a defense that can shut him down, it would be, the New England defense, which has done masterful work on almost every player in the league at one point. So that's why. But New Orleans is defensively, I think, almost as talented as New England. So then it comes down to the offenses. I mean, it comes down to the
I think it should be 3. Well, here's
okay. I agree with you then, because
here's what I was.
I can talk myself into New Orleans plus 3.5 all day.
Here's what I was going to say: the New England offense, much bigger question mark for me than the New Orleans.
They always
offense.
seem to answer that question at the end of the year, though. Almost always. You know what I'm
coming
saying?
back? Is Gronk coming back? Because I'm.
But Gronk wasn't the reason they won in the playoffs
last season. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it was.
He was the reason they won the Super Bowl, though.
Because the one drive they put together was basically on his back.
Torched people.
Yeah.
All right. The more interesting matchup, the matchup that I need to see in Miami is Tommy B versus Jimmy G. Oh my goodness.
New England minus 7.5.
New England minus 7.5.
Yes.
I'm going to say New England minus 5.5. And here's why. The San Francisco defense is licking its lips thinking about this Patriots offensive
Marshall
line.
Newhouse.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say that except for New England gets 2 weeks off to prepare for that said defense.
I agree, but here's the thing. San Francisco will have beaten New Orleans in all likelihood to get to this point. And to me, that matters, right? Mm-hmm. Like, a team that beats New Orleans, I don't think should be more than a touchdown underdog to New England.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, unless New Orleans puts up a clunker like they did against like Dallas on Thursday Night Football last year, or the NFC Championship game, quite frankly. But yeah, okay. I think the disparity of the quarterback position is so high here by that time of the season that
no faith.
Yeah.
No faith.
I can't believe we're already talking about that. Like,
Jimmy
good
G's
for you,
gamer.
man. Good for you, man.
Right. Good for me.
You can sell that Airbnb.
I've been working hard on this one.
For twice the value.
This would be an interesting one. Kansas City, New Orleans. I get to go first one of these times because it's unfair. I get to hear your number and you don't know. So Kansas City, New Orleans. I think New Orleans would be favored by 1.5.
Wow. I was going to say like 4.5.
Really?
Well, the Kansas
City will have beaten New England
on the road. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. All those things are valid. For me, though, it's New Orleans is just a more complete team. They have just as good of a head coach and offensive play caller,
and a better decision
maker. Far better decision. That's what I was going to say. Far better decision maker. Probably a more healthy quarterback at that point in time, because Breeze is not going to have the issues that Mahomes is going to have with his legs. They're way better defensively. I mean, New Orleans defense is one of the most underrated things in all of football.
Sure.
And then, you know what they also have?
Grit, toughness, heart.
They have the Tave train.
Yeah.
And the Tave train can do what Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams did tonight, which is basically get open and run the game away from these linebackers if you ever want to, talk about them for Kansas City.
All I will say is, as great as you think New Orleans' defense is, the Kansas City offense will put up points in that game and put up a lot. Kansas City, San Francisco. I think
Joe Montana Bowl.
I think Kansas City would be favored by 3.5 in this game.
That's about what I thought. I think that this will be like the league's best offense against the league's best defense in Atlanta, Miami, and it's late, and then I think you'd obviously give the edge to offense because that's how the NFL is played,
and the better quarterback.
I don't mind 3.5. I would say, yeah, that's probably fair, and then I would take the points with San Francisco.
I would too, and here's why. Jimmy G isn't that bad. He's good enough.
We just talked about this,
to whoop the crap out of Kansas City.
Well,
and Shanahan would, if Matt LaFleur is scheming up,
dude, I mean,
offensive schemes in a week against Kansas City,
Tevin Coleman's going to score 2 times on the way to the end zone.
That'd
against those. Here's the thing that that this game would remind me of the Colts versus the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I think the defense giving Mahomes fits, and the reason that Indy did was because Mahomes hurt.
Yeah.
But the Niners would because they're good. And then San Francisco playing keep away and just dominating, the weaknesses
400
of the
rushing
Chiefs.
yards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
all right, we've made it a whopping 41 minutes without talking about the following week. So now it is time.
Okay.
We're going to go through the games that are interesting first, and then we're going to speed through the bad ones. We've got a little confession session at the end, as we are doing every Sunday, prayers and thoughts. We're going to start with the primetime games here. So the best game of the week is on Sunday night, finally. New England, Baltimore. It's in Baltimore. I said that, where is it here? I said Baltimore would be a 6-point underdog at home.
Yeah, I said 4.5, and I was closer, but we are both kind of far away. During Sunday Night Football, it was 4, and now it is 3.5.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What are you looking at here?
I was looking at Bet Online. Baltimore, New England?
Yeah. I literally saw 6.
Well, it could have gotten. This is making for a great podcast right now.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's 3.5 right now on Bet Online. Are you making an investment?
I mean, what?
New England minus 180 on the money line.
Did some sort of information come out? It was also I looked earlier today. It was 6.
Yeah. So New England was not impressive today against the Cleveland Browns is probably what the betting market thinks. Plus
by 3 points.
But you also think it's a bunch of people going on tilt because Cleveland was clearly a scrap side this week, right?
Yeah.
And took a lot of money. And New England put up their end of the bargain in not covering 2 touchdowns. Cleveland didn't, right?
I think this is more of a reaction. Well,
don't you think? Right? Because let's talk about this, right? So Kansas City, whatever Kansas City is next week against Minnesota, is going to be far less. They're going to be dogs, I think, right? They're going to be far less dogs now because they saw how Kansas City played tonight and said, well, we're going to chalk that up to Aaron Rodgers being brilliant, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't cover and lost because of the other team, right?
Yeah. Same
thing with New England, right? People are like, oh, we're on Cleveland this week. Well, Cleveland didn't cover because New England didn't cover because of them. They didn't cover because of the other team, right? So if you insert another team into the situation, then I think that the logic still holds.
So I guess the run game for Baltimore will be a new thing for New England to shut down, for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Coming off of a bye at home.
No, I'm just asking for acknowledgement that the run game will be a new thing. Okay. So they're going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Well,
that's what you've got for me? You're telling me that Lamar Jackson is not going to have to throw the ball in this game?
I think John Harbaugh is one of those coaches where people will give them a serious upgrade in things like off of a bye, things like, preparedness and stuff like that, right? Like finding wrinkles that will hurt another team. But I think this is way too short. I'm hoping Green Line feels the same way.
I've already made an investment.
Well, because I just think the issue is we've already seen it come down. Does it continue? This is not like Detroit. This is not like last week when we talked about Denver and the Los Angeles Chargers, where they went down to unplayable numbers by like Tuesday. Is this a playable number now, or is this going to get down all the way to 2.5, 3?
There's no way it crosses 3 in my mind.
Well,
I can't
right.
imagine.
So is 3.5 the best you're going to get here if you want to back New England on the road?
Maybe.
Well, so then
why would you wait though?
If you could get a 3,
yes, then you invest again. This isn't rocket science,
right? But
I'm going to take it now, and I'm going to take it if it gets to 3.
Okay, I guess my thing is okay if a lot of people feel the way you do and I do, then this might get all the way out to like 5.5, and then you like that's the risk you take.
What do you
mean? So right now you see it at 4, and then it went to 3.5. Like one could assume that maybe this gets down to a juice 3. Do you wait for it to get to a juice 3 and take the risk that it goes back up to 4 or 5?
No, I didn't. I literally just didn't do that.
That's what I'm trying to go
Sorry,
through.
when you said you, I thought you were talking about me.
I'm talking about the listener that's trying to gain value from this podcast.
Like me. They're smart like me, and they went straight to that's just too short. I think
it's also juiced towards New England. It's minus 107 right now on BetOnline.
You could legitimately see in my mind, and I hope that Baltimore makes a game of this, to be perfectly honest with you. But Baltimore's defense has not shown to be one that is scaring anyone, okay? And I think you could legitimately see the Patriots have their best offensive performance. They have Sanu now for a week, okay? They played a Cleveland team that they didn't really have to play. They just went out there and breathed on it. And the stories all week are going to be about how, well, can Bill Belichick stop this unique Ravens offense? The answer is yes, he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
No, I very much see it the way I think that they can make Lamar Jackson look like a fish out of water here. I wonder how much they prepared for the Browns, because the Browns came off of a bye, but like God knows that Belichick just looks across the field at his former team,
Freddie Kitchens,
and it's just like,
come on, man,
this team. So anyway, okay,
let's move on. Thursday night football.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. The San Francisco 49ers are in Arizona to face Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. This is actually going to be a kind of interesting game to watch, even if it's not close. What do you think this one is?
I said 10.5 when I guessed earlier today. What did you say?
Oh, my goodness. I said 6.
And during Sunday Night Football, it was 8. So right the difference between us. But I think it's since been taken down. At least I don't see it on BetOnline.
Really?
But it was 8 on the very same website during Sunday Night Football.
I still see 8.
Okay, so 8. Which side are you? So it's at Arizona.
I mean, when I wrote down 6, I was like, I mean, this was before Carolina.
Before they trained.
I expected that game to be within a touchdown.
Yep.
Spread was within a touchdown. I expected it to be within a touchdown. And I think if San Francisco wins by a touchdown in that game, then this is probably just under a touchdown. Because, I mean, I don't know. There's no way.
What did you think of Arizona's performance today? Was it below or above expectation?
A little below.
See, the thing is for me is I think Murray has – so of the 2 quarterbacks that have been picked number 1 in the last few years, Baker has been a disaster the last month. Murray has luckily not been a disaster, but he has gotten a little worse efficiency-wise every week. And even to the point where today was a little bit of an uptick, but still not great. And Arizona in this game, much like Kyle Allen had to this game and failed, San Francisco is going to score points, especially indoors. Oh, and yeah. I just don't. And San Francisco is also on a course to try to prove to everybody that they've played somebody before, yeah. And so that's why I had the number a little bit higher.
They're scorched earth,
right? I mean, Saleh is like taking 17 greenies before the game, and just like,
Yeah. I mean, the real issue is that Arizona can't pass block, and this could be over real quickly. Though it feels like you watched the Carolina game in your mind and then made that pick, because a 10 is a lot, right?
Right, but San Francisco is like, I don't have a huge opinion of Arizona. Like, those linebackers are horrible.
They're bad.
Yeah.
It's just Kyler Murray at home. I don't know. I can't convince myself on that one.
Okay. Who else do we got now?
We do get Buck and Aikman, though, so that's good. Do you think people will start crying?
Yeah, I mean, when
screaming in the
guy
streets,
screws up statistics again.
Yeah, give Troy a break, man.
Dude, he's like sweating during those games, man. He's trying.
He is trying. He's legitimately trying. People should shut up. Anyways, Dallas at New York is Boog and Tess. Daniel Jones, the Giants, hosting the Cowboys. I said that this would be Giants getting 5.5 at home.
Yeah, and I said Giants getting 7.5. And it is currently 7. Juice towards 7.5.
Wow.
I'm
getting raked here. Raked over the coals.
I don't know. I mean, Dallas isn't that good, man.
That's my point.
And I think that the only thing that's that's inflating this number is that the Giants.
Off a bye.
What's that?
Coming off a bye.
Come off a bye, road, getting that. So again, the NFL. How many of these Monday Night Football teams need to be coming off a bye? It's like another wasted every single week. I think that the issue is Daniel Jones. I think Jones played a little bit better today than he had previous weeks, but it's still not very good.
I agree with you, but this is a division game. Pat Shurmur is not giving up by any stretch of the imagination.
And he's coaching okay.
No. And I will tell you this. As much love as those linebackers get for Dallas, I'm going to take Saquon Barkley in that battle like every single time. The Dallas defense has not been that great. Over a touchdown is a lot, I think. And the Cowboys have played. The Cowboys played 3 good teams or not 3 good teams. They played 3 games where they looked absolutely awful. They play 1 game against an Eagles team who gives up the ball twice early on and just says, "Hey, screw it," right? And win. And now all of a sudden they're 7-point favorites on the road. That's a little bit much to me.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the bye. The other thing, and this is important, is I think the Giants don't get as much out of their running back passes as the impressiveness would suggest.
Oh, yes. If you listen to this podcast, you know.
So, I mean, I hope
we
have Dallas's under, so it'd be nice if the Giants put up a fight. But anyway, we also took the Giants week 1 plus 7 at Dallas, and we're not on the winning end. So
that was Eli. So that was a generation ago.
That's right. We have what's it? Danny Dimes thing was like his warm up or something was really weird.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
You got to warm up the shoulders though.
You do.
All right. This is a game that actually one of the better games of the week. If Pat Mahomes can come back, Minnesota goes to Kansas City. Feels like Kansas City's had a ton of home games and they're just losing them all.
They lost 3 in a row.
Yes. I am assuming. Actually, I don't remember what I assumed.
Well, it's kind of inconsequential because the number's not up. So let's just assume Moore is starting. How's that?
Okay.
That's the assumption I made.
Okay. If Moore is starting, then I think it is Minnesota by 2.5.
Okay, and I basically gave it the same spread as this week. I said Kansas City plus 4. I was a little the number closed tonight 5.
Yeah.
So I think Kansas City. So, yeah.
I think that the way Moore played and the way the Kansas City offense played had to be far above what people who were betting to get Green Bay to plus 5 were thinking.
Yep.
I mean, look, if Mahomes plays coming off an injury, I got to think this is Kansas City by 4.5, 5.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
7.5,
And
8
the
points,
Kirk Cousins playing crappy team or playing good teams on the road.
Yeah, but granted that offense or defense is terrible.
Right. And here's the other thing. Minnesota has the 10 days off prior to the travel to Kansas City. But this has to be like the first 4-game losing streak at home for Kansas City since they went like 2-14 in 2012. This would be a terrible losing streak for them.
This would be rough. And Minnesota has been, their offense, they've kind of figured out they need to throw the ball a little more.
Yeah.
They're leveraging play action. So that would be something.
Adam Thielen
Kansas
would be
City's
the
not
one
ready.
consideration that would actually, I think, impact the spread by like half a point. If he were to not go, it would put a little less stress.
Don't you think Mahomes plays? I really do.
Well, he said if it was a playoff game, he would have played tonight, which is a little irritating. But
well, and if they'd won tonight, there's no chance he plays. He's taking that extra game off. But they lost.
The defense for the Vikings, I think, is a little bit better than the defense for Green Bay. There's also the preparation now that there's tape on what Matt Moore can do in that offense. So I think there are some things that we saw tonight that make us like Kansas City more with Moore, but there are some things that we'll pull back on, which is the familiarity aspect to it. So maybe he plays. If he plays, I think it's more like Kansas City minus 2.5, begging people to bet on Mahomes off of the injury.
If that is the case,
yeah,
we'll be going back. The Chicago Bears go to Philadelphia to play the newly resurrected Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep.
What'd you have here?
I thought that our Chicago under tour would continue. I took Philly minus 3.5. Was my guess.
I had Philly minus 3. I assumed a close Chicago Bears win.
Yeah.
And a Eagles potential win. Maybe.
Yeah. Eagles one of only
loss.
2 teams that were an underdog today that won outright, and they were only like basically a pick 'em by the end of the game. So they actually is 4.5. So we were both a little bit short on, and it's growing towards Philly. So it's minus 4.5, minus 115.
Interesting.
Do
you think this is just all negative? This is just all negativity about the last, second decision. And
here's the thing, though: the Bears at plus 4.5 are a good bet.
Well, clearly we think so because we had the Eagles by 3.
Well, because here's my thing. And granted, okay, so right now it's Bears minus 4.5, minus 105. You could get this out to 5, 5.5 because there's no key numbers out until you get to 6. That being said, I think if people start adding this stuff up, the Bears plus 4.5 is going to be a good bet this week.
I don't disagree with you.
They
at all.
can stress teams deep. Allen Robinson is terrific. Trey Burton got down the field a little bit today. Their running backs, David Montgomery played awesome in terms of breaking tackles and stuff.
Stop it.
Their defense is not bad.
No.
They played well today. They forced turnovers. They were good. They lost to a Chargers team that was 12-4 last year by 1, and they should have won. I think this is a classic, and you're not going to get me to back Trubisky very much, but this is a classic overreaction.
It's an overreaction. I totally agree with you. And as bad as Trubisky is,
2 wagers here.
As bad as Trubisky is, he made the game a couple weeks ago. He made no good throws.
Yeah,
he made a couple of throws in this game from a clean pocket that were not too terrible.
Yeah,
and the Philly thing to me is more about that matchup with Josh Allen than it necessarily was about them resurrecting. So if you're getting more, more than a field goal, you're getting more than 4 points. I'm with you. I think
I see it at plus 5 somewhere as well. So
like it. I do like it. Not my favorite so far, but I like it.
Yeah.
Moving right along, the Houston Texans go into Jacksonville to face Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars.
This has become a big game with Jacksonville now. I believe 4-2.
Yep. They played well. Gardner Minshew was very
Houston
good today.
Houston is of the, I believe, 5-2 variety. In any event, they are both battling in a division that when Andrew Luck retired and then Houston made all those silly trades, I said congratulations to the Tennessee Titans for winning the division at 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
That has not materialized. Tennessee will finish 7-9, but they'll be in last place of that division probably And Jacksonville, granted, they got to play the Jets today, but Gardner Minshew, like over 100 passer rating when pressured. He made some, lights out plays. The receivers for his team, Chark, Conley, D.D. Westbrook, right? Like making plays for him.
Yeah.
I said Jacksonville would be a 2.5-point favorite.
I said Jacksonville would be a 1-point underdog.
And you were more right than me because Houston is 2.5-point favorites right now.
I think that makes sense. The fact that Houston has Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, I think they should be favored in this game. They are the better team than Jacksonville by, I think, a pretty decent margin. The Jets just suck. That's my...
Yeah, and they still almost cover the number. I mean,
That's what I'm going to go with. The Jets just suck.
Okay. I mean, anything... This needs to get out to 3 for me to want to back Jacksonville, even though I was on sort of their side, at least initially.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We backed Jacksonville. Our first lock of the week that won this year was Jacksonville +9 in Houston.
Yep.
And that game was basically a field goal fest, and then eventually we got through. We'll see if that materializes that way. Jacksonville has certainly earned a little bit of the betting market's respect over the last few weeks. So cool that this ends up being an important game in the AFC South.
Green Bay is going to bring all of Green Bay to Los Angeles to play the Chargers.
I don't want to see you in LA during this because you would be stupefied by the cheese and the cholesterol consumption of the Wisconsinites that make their way to your Mecca.
I wouldn't because I once spent 2 weeks in Wisconsin and saw.
But you spent 2 weeks in Madison, which is like saying I spent 2 weeks in Texas when you were in Austin. Like it's just not characteristic of the state.
Okay, so I would be terrified. I had Green Bay favored by 4.5.
Wow. I said that this game would be a pick'em.
Whoa.
And the number is in between us, but it's closer to you. Right before Sunday Night Football, Green Bay was 3-point favorites.
It'll be 4.5 when you wake up tomorrow, at least.
Just the way that Rodgers played.
Absolutely. The way that Rodgers played, the way that Aaron Jones lit things up, the way that the Chargers won fraudulently, the way that Rivers looked, the fact that Green Bay is a public team, the fact that maybe there are some people that don't realize this game is being played in a soccer stadium in Los Angeles. Like, all of those things will
I expected
together.
More out of LA today, and I expected less out of Green Bay. Yeah, that's the point. As I think, and I didn't give LA any home field advantage, but I didn't also give any home field advantage to Green Bay, which might be my error. They should probably get some home field advantage given that the fans will be on their side.
If everyone voted tomorrow, Aaron Rodgers would be the MVP of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's egregious anymore.
I don't think it's egregious. I think it's wrong. I think Russell Wilson has been the most valuable player in the NFL.
Yeah. They've asked more out of Rodgers the last few weeks than the Seahawks have asked of Wilson.
He just beat Matt Moore by 7. Let's not lose our minds here.
That's true.
All right, those are the games that we thought were worthwhile. Now we get to the good stuff.
Okay, so let's talk.
Let's do Tampa Bay Seattle because there's a couple games in this group that are actually like not too terrible.
Yeah,
this one is one of them. Tampa Bay goes to Seattle. Tampa Bay is a turnover festival.
Dude, stop.
Yeah, your boy Jameis Winston.
Dude,
he's not great. What did you think this was?
I said Seattle -6.5.
I said Seattle -6.
And it is 6.5 currently.
I have no problem with that. I thought Tampa Bay would win.
Stop.
I thought Tampa Bay would win this game, and they didn't against Tennessee and Ryan Tannenbaum. And
this is how much we obviously have Tampa Bay over, Tennessee under. I had so much faith in Jameis today that I bet Tennessee on the money line for about half of that amount.
Wow.
Because I just didn't have any faith in Jameis, and ultimately he came through. Although they got screwed over on a fumble touchdown on that fake punt, their fake field goal. They should have had a touchdown. But
this is fair. First time the refs have screwed up all year.
Yep.
This game could potentially be fun, right? Like, I actually think it could be kind of fun. Because if Tampa Bay doesn't poop themselves, then, you've got, like, couple.
This will be a high
scoring.
ADOT game. It's 53.5 as a total.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the weather is going to be like there in Seattle.
Well, and unlike some of these games Seattle's played recently, right? They've gone under the last 2 weeks. Tampa Bay is not an under opponent.
Nope.
Right. So this one, I kind of like the total where it is, because Tampa Bay will score and they will give up scores, both on offense.
Factual. Detroit goes to Oakland. Oakland has been actually
plucky.
Impressive to me the past 2 weeks. We talked about that Green Bay game ad nauseum. They really should have won the game on the road in Houston. They finally get a home game.
Yep.
So that bodes well for them. Detroit,
These are two teams that could make a claim to have better records than they have.
Certainly.
And also two teams that should wonder what the heck the schedulers were doing to them. So this is Oakland's first home game, I believe, since week 2.
Yeah, it's been forever.
So they get a chance to come home. I had them at 2.5-point favorites going into the day.
Oakland.
Yeah,
Oakland favored.
Yep.
I had Oakland as a 1-point underdog.
And it is now during Sunday Night Football is -1.5. It is now -2.
Oakland is favored.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this an investment opportunity for you?
Maybe. I was impressed by Oakland today. I thought they would maybe lose a little more convincingly. And I also thought, I don't know, Detroit, I think Detroit is legitimately good. I think that Detroit could cause Derek Carr some issues.
Yeah, the only thing that's about Detroit, and our pal and colleague Austin Gale pointed this out every turn today, is that they just don't get pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, that's true.
And so Derek Carr can be effective when he doesn't face pressure. So that would be my only concern. The Oakland secondary, though, against the likes of Kenny Golladay, Danny Amendola,
they're going to get roasted.
and Marvin Jones, and T.J. Hawkinson, they just have too many weapons. And I think as long as Stafford doesn't make a ton of mistakes, I think they cover this.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
All
right, next up.
Let's go to Denver on purpose.
Just not looking at the list here, are you?
Oh, I have my own list, my own numbers, so you don't see them.
Right, but in the
sorry.
podcast doc, we literally have
I know
them out there.
Okay, fine. So we're talking about
Simple.
Indianapolis at Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Okay, let's go Indianapolis.
Trying to be a team player.
I
here.
know, but I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying not to give you away my numbers.
Right. That's why you have them in a separate doc.
Okay, I said Pittsburgh would be a 1-point favorite. We do not know the outcome of tonight's game.
Tonight's glorious game.
Yeah, but I said Pittsburgh would be a 1-point favorite.
Okay, I said this would be a pick.
And it is a pick.
Great.
Well, because what happened today, Indianapolis underperformed. We had sort of discussed that this would be kind of a letdown game.
Mm-hmm. Indy
Indy did not cover. They did end up winning because of sort of a stone cold kick by their kicker at the end. So I think Pittsburgh. The interesting thing, Pittsburgh wins tonight. They're pick them at home against Indianapolis. They're just a couple games away from being 500. Which is kind of interesting. In a crap AFC, they could maybe catch Buffalo. I don't see it happening, but that could be an interesting one to look at.
I think if Pittsburgh wins semi-convincingly, that they would be, I think they would be favored in this game. And there I think I would like Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I like Frank Reich against Mike Tomlin. That's something I would like to invest in.
Okay.
The worst game of the week by a country mile is the Jets and the Dolphins. And I said that the Miami Dolphins would be getting 3.5 points at home against the New York Jets.
I said the same thing. And it is currently 4.5.
Wow. We're going to bet on the Dolphins for the
rest of the
team this
season.
year, aren't we? I mean, this is another situation. The better quarterbacks at home getting points, right?
Yeah.
Sam Darnold looks lost, man.
I mean, the seeing ghost things, it's like he shouldn't have ever admitted it, but it's totally true, unfortunately.
Sure. Also kind of overblown.
Yes.
People
Well,
make
but
grades.
everything in football is
It's true.
overblown.
It's a good point. This is America. All right. Marching right along. Tennessee at Carolina. Do you think Cam Newton is back for this game?
Well, that is not what I assumed.
Okay. Neither did I, by the way.
I said Carolina would be 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah. So this tells you how I felt about Carolina going this week. I thought Carolina would be a 5-point favorite.
And it is currently 3.5.
Yeah.
Is there a case to be made?
No.
Okay.
I will
The
not be.
the
I
one
will
part
not
of
be
this
making
game-
a case for Ryan Tannehill.
The one part of this game that I do like is 40.5. I think the over might have some value. And Tennessee overs have been kind of a crapshoot at times. But that one looks somewhat appealing to me.
No, I'm with you. And the Kyle Allen, if he continues to play and he looked absolutely terrible against San Francisco, but at home against Tennessee is totally different.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to need them to play well if we want Tennessee's under to hit.
A totally different ball game. Tennessee, who do you
Juice towards Tennessee, by the way, plus 3.5 is minus
think,
120.
who starts for quarterback in Tennessee?
Ryan
next year?
Tannehill.
Wow,
So
you think
basically Kyle Allen.
you think he stays there next year?
No.
That's what I just asked.
Oh, no. Is he
Who
the
is the I know
next
he's starting.
season?
Right, next season.
I honestly think, Vrabel is more of like he's a Patriot, right? So you kind of want somebody
Got one
who's
for you.
more of an underneath guy.
I've got one for you.
Teddy Bridgewater?
No. I think he drafts one. This is his guy.
Not
know?
Herbert.
No, I just think he drafts one.
Oh, I see.
Like he drafts a quarterback for him finally.
But
I
how
don't
do
know
you
who it is.
how do you get a quarterback? Like they're going to be picking like 15th. Dwayne Haskins?
Where were the Chiefs picking when they got Mahomes?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess and I guess if it's his last hurrah, he's going to get the opportunity.
Yeah, he's got to get the opportunity. I think they do that. I think if Brissett were available.
That's another good one. That's sort of a Patriot and sort
Yes.
of Hoyer maybe.
Ooh. No. Washington goes to Buffalo in what I can only hope is Dwayne Haskins versus Josh Allen, but it'll probably be Case Keenum based on how Dwayne Haskins looked like he hadn't been in a quarterback
He has
meeting
not
room
earned
yet.
he's not earned the H in his last name yet.
Whew. You'd love to see it. What'd you have this one at?
7.5.
I had Buffalo favored by 10.
And it is 10. And
Thank
it
you.
started at 10.5. It's been bet down to 10.
Washington's bad.
Buffalo is not good though.
If Case Keenum is starting, I kind of hedged my bets here because I don't really know. I'm assuming Case Keenum probably does start.
Case Keenum was dealing on Thursday Night Football.
I like 10. If I had to pick this, I would take Washington. They have extra rest. Case Keenum looked fine, and Bill Callahan is just he tries to cover spreads by running. That's just what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So
the over-under for this game is currently set at 37. Yeah.
see why. Cleveland goes to Denver in what I can only assume was going to be an amazing game at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, next week's 4:00.
There is a 9 a.m. game. Which one is the 9 a.m. game?
Houston, Jacksonville. I think
That's
that
right.
game's London then.
Yeah.
Well, the home field advantage remains the same. Yeah, the 4:00 games look a little bit light. Anyway, so I said Denver will be favored by 2.5.
I have Denver favored by 3.
And it is currently 1.5. Cleveland
Wow.
getting the steam right now.
Wow. So people think they were semi-impressive against New England.
People, it's weird. I think where do you fall on this? This is about our last discussion topic tonight. Where do you fall on this? Is coaching easily correctable? Because that's really what people are buying into. And that's what we bought into for the Falcons for a year and a half.
A long time.
Was talented quarterback, efficient offense, talent on defense at times for the Falcons. But like you look at the Browns, you're like talented quarterback, really good skill position players, talented defense. If the coach could just figure out how not to be this way when the game's on the line, they'd be good.
Yep.
And I think especially after watching football this week, I'm going to sell that idea.
I think it's correctable if it's a simple decision, like, hey, you are doing this too much. You're, running too much on second and long. To me, I don't see how that can't be correctable. But given the nature of the job and how you've got to kind of win the lottery and be super driven to get to where you are, I don't think coaches are willing to change things. And we know how crazy the rigmarole of a week in the NFL season is, just working on like kind of the fringe of the NFL, right? So if you're an NFL coach, I can't imagine that you've got the time in a week in the regular season to be like, oh, let me sit down and think through how I'm going to change this and then actually implement it in the NFL season. Like that to me just seems too hard to do.
The hard part is the fact that the only guys that we've continuously lauded are guys who appear to have a process in place.
Right.
The Harbaughs of the world, the Belichicks of the world, the Reichs of the world,
Sean
Paytons of the world. Everybody else, it's this continuous like bouncing back between like WTF decisions and that was so Kingsbury
like lucks into
Kingsbury kicks all these field goals in the red zone, but then today he goes for it from his own 29, doesn't make it. Now, is Kingsbury only doing that as a like? Is he sort of like when we used to teach math? Is this person doing this trick because they understand the mathematics and that's why they're doing it? Or are they doing it because we marked their last assignment incorrectly and they know that the thing that they got incorrect was this, but if you change the problem on them at all, they're screwed.
No, I'll give you this. It's not even that. It's it's the in my bag of things that I remember, I'm throwing this one out there, and every once in a while I'm going to put it on the right problem and And
that's how 9 out of every 10 coaches that calls plays in the NFL and college feels like. There's no process. They're just aimlessly making decisions at times. And so, I think if you bet the Browns on a week-to-week basis, you could get lucky and they could make all those right decisions for a week. And you could make hay out of it. But on a consistent basis, I just don't think coaching is very easily correctable.
I'm with you. Lincoln Riley to the Browns. Actually, I think the Browns might be so disparaged that even Lincoln Riley
kicked a field goal down 10 on a 4th and 2 Saturday.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying you can't be worse than Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Yeah, that's true.
Cannot. All right, that's the slate. Your favorite game right now?
Oh man, Minnesota, Kansas City, of course.
Which side?
You want me to actually pick a game?
Yeah.
I like Bears plus 4.5.
I think that's a good
at
one.
Philadelphia.
My favorite is the Patriots.
Minus 3.5.
I mean, all day, all night. What did you say? The Minnesota? It's not up there.
It's not up because the uncertainty with respect to Mahomes. Yeah,
I think that's fair. So, I think that's my favorite. All right, confession session. I have a confession. I don't know if you have one.
Okay.
Here's my confession. I've been searching. So on Fridays and Saturday nights, I like to relax, watch some TV. When I'm at just kick it, and I feel like I'm always hungry. So I have this very terrible habit of snacking, but the snacking never fills me up. So the snacking turns into just a never-ending, just continual eating.
Right.
Of food, and I've been trying different snacks. I bought carrots. I used to have this granola problem. I would just eat whole bags of granola. And I was like, I probably shouldn't do this because granola is not great for you. And I was like, all right, I'll do apple and peanut butter. And then I'm just throwing, cans of peanut butter away every couple of days. So then I bought carrots. And now I'm just munching on carrots and beef jerky at 11:30 at night.
But you said once you found a good beef jerky, it's pretty solid for you.
It is. The problem is they're small packets of beef jerky. which is probably a good thing because the guilt of opening a new packet of beef jerky is the only thing that deterred me from continuing to go on.
Oh, right.
So my confession is just that I, on Fridays and Saturday nights, house an incredible amount of snacks, and I'm probably a solid 10 pounds over where I should be given that.
Same. Okay. My confession is that I watch an embarrassing amount of college football for somebody who is at best lukewarm about it. So the other night, I don't know if you guys, Memphis was playing on the road against Tulsa.
Yeah.
And our colleague Ben Brown, who writes a great article for Spread Picks for College, he writes one up. He's doing really well this year, I think 57% or something. And he had Memphis minus 10.5. I checked Green Line, and we have like a pretty decent edge on it. But not, we had a good day that day. Memphis has a 14-point lead. It turns into an 11-point lead. It turns into a 3-point lead. It turns into a 0-point lead. And then it turns into a 1-point margin of and so I go back and look at Green Line, and we showed something like a 5% edge on a minus 300 money line, which is not great, Bob,
No.
when they're about to lose. So I'm sitting there, and my wife comes back. She had something to do that night. I'm sitting there like sweating. My like watching this game. And the poor Tulsa kicker misses like a 28-yard field goal, and Memphis wins, and so the minus 300 actually cashes. And I finally had this moment where I'm like, you need to not watch this much college football. It's Memphis and Tulsa. It's like, come on.
I'm so glad you had this realization, because I've had this realization for you for a while.
I know.
Where
you're a good friend.
I don't understand. Personally, I'm in awe, because I care, obviously, deeply, as you know, about winning and losing.
Yes.
But if I grind through an entire Saturday of college football, I'm dead by Sunday. So, I don't enjoy actually watching the college football, because they're just literally like flipping coins left and right.
Right.
So
the only thing that was a sure lock this week was the Oklahoma game was going over. That was the only. Everything else is a coin flip.
And I watched a little bit of that, to be honest with you. So I try my best to not watch any college football. I watch. You know what I do on Saturdays? I watch the upcoming Sunday night game teams. So I watched the little Ravens. I turned the Michigan game on for about 3 minutes.
I mean, if you could even call it one.
I watched Tiger Woods and stuffed my face full of beef jerky.
Well, my thing is I spend Saturday morning generally watching Netflix with my wife. Like the Saturday we watch The Office, right? But once the games come on, man. So I got to find a way. Like I will go play like basketball with my daughters or something.
That's smart.
But yeah, that's my confession, and it ended with the realization during Tulsa, Memphis.
So are you gonna actually watch less next weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
The best part about college football is we're 75% of the way through, really.
That's
you love to see
absolutely fantastic. I'll do my best to eat less.
Oh, stop.
But it's a problem though.
Yeah.
I'm never not hungry.
Yeah.
It's a real issue. All right. That was our podcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we will be back on Thursday. Peace out.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.